Welcome to Muslims Doing Things, a podcast about extraordinary Muslims and their career journeys. This is a guest I've actually been wanting to have on a show if I had one since before I even had a show, because I heard his name first in 2013, which we'll get into. But Pious, welcome to the show. This is Pious Ali. What do you do?
Thank you very much. I am a city councillor at large in Portland, Maine by night. And then during the day, I run a program called Portland Empowered, where I work with immigrants system work in the US. And then I work with high school students to help them, who are also immigrants, to help them build their leadership skills at that level. And then part of that is also a fellowship called Civic and Community Engagement Fellows, which work with young immigrants and other racial minority between the age of 21 and 29. These ones learn what we call 21st century soft skills that will prepare them for them to do well in their career of choice and also be part of their city or community, and then engage the political system to make sure that the need of their community is met.
So you are a civil servant through and through.
Yes, my I joke to my daughter. I always say to her that I'm a public servant, and she said, "Dad, no, you're a politician." I said, "No, I'm a public servant at large." Yeah, yeah, I'm a civil public servant through and through. Yeah,
That's amazing. Well, I'm really looking forward to getting into your journey. Where were you born?
I was born in Ghana, in West Africa, and then I grew up there. I moved to the U.S. when I was 31 years old.
And before, when you were in Ghana, before you came to the United States, so you're kind of a young boy in Ghana. How did you envision your future to look? And tell us the journey between newborn Pius to 31 coming to America. What were the series of decisions that brought you to, I'm assuming Maine, but we'll get into that.
Right. So I was, to those who know the tradition of madrasa, I was born in a household that have madrasa. My grandfather's cousins or family members ran madrasa. On my mother's side, I was born there and raised in that household. And when I was about to go to high school, I moved to the capital city, which is the capital city of Ghana, where my father is. My mother and my father were separated when I was young. So my grandmother on my mother's side raised me. She moved to the capital city, and when I was ready to go to high school, I joined her and went to high school in Accra. Um, when I was in high school, I fell in love with photography because I love art, but I don't know how to draw. I try and try and try. It was not working. So I fell on photography. As it may be, I became a very good photographer. My framing, my ability to capture a moment was kind of like right on point. So when I
Mm.
graduated from high school, instead of going to college, I took these courses that teach you how to be a photojournalist. And then I start working for
Huh.
newspapers and magazines in Ghana. I will cover a lot of celebrities, politicians, and so on and so forth. When I was in Ghana, hardly a week passes without a newspaper in Ghana publishing my work. Hardly, at least once or twice.
And was it competitive? Were there a lot of photojournalists submitting their work to newspapers, or were there just a few select ones?
No, there were a lot of newspaper photographers. They were in house. I was freelancing, so I have the ability to not rely. I was not in house. I was a freelancer, so I will cover almost everything. I will look for things that other news would not necessarily go for, and then I will cover it, and then I will send it around, and somebody will take it, pick it up. Or sometimes when there were specific events that they want me to cover, newspapers or magazines will commission me to go and cover it for them. I eventually became like a celebrity photographer. I don't need invitation to go to event. I just show up and said I'm here, and they will let me in.
And how does that work considering this isn't digital cameras? I'm not going to age you, but I'm assuming when you were 18 years old, maybe we weren't relying on digital cameras. And so you go to an event and you have to go develop it yourself. Do you literally send hard copies around? Are they photocopies? Like logistically, how does that actually work?
So, because if let's say I cover, let's say, a musical event or a fashion show, or some politician is having an event, and I happen to be the photographer there that covers it. Because if I am going to go to a dark room and do the process, it's going to be a long process. There are, here in the US, maybe 20 years ago, when you work around, pharmacies have their own photo printing place. So I will go to the one that is working overnight and then say that,
Mm.
hey, they love also seeing the pictures that I bring, because they know that I always have exclusive pictures. So I will go to one that I know these people, it doesn't matter what day of the week, which time, they are almost always working 24/7. So I will go and kind of like push my way through, and then they will print it for me. So I will go back again and bring it out to the, especially the ones that I am or I was commissioned to do. I will tell them by 1 a.m. I will bring it to you so that you can, they say, before you go to bed, so that you can print it and it will be ready in the morning. And then, yeah, so that is how I do it. You mentioned digital, and we can go there. I will talk about that once we get there. There was no digital photography.
Well, oh, so there was no, so this career went on for a while. If you did you ultimately become a digital photographer?
No, actually, digital photography was what brought me to the US.
Oh, interesting. Okay, okay, we'll get there.
Yeah.
I see what you're
So
saying.
we will get there. Yeah.
Okay, so you're
So
this star, high flying photographer in Accra, and like I'd imagine the interesting thing about what you're explaining right now is that you had to actually, because you weren't working for a paper itself, you had to understand how papers operated, who published at 1 a.m., who published at 2 a.m., who is easy to buy a photo, because you had to literally like physically go places probably to show them photograph to sell it with the lack of digital communication. So it's pretty interesting because you ultimately had to understand an ecosystem, find a need, and figure out where you fit in the need because they hadn't directly hired you. So you figured this out clearly. You're very famous in Accra clearly. Then what? Like, why did you stop, or did you stop?
I didn't stop. You mentioned there's no digital communication. We used to have pager, right? So somebody would page me and say that, hey, can you go to this or that space where this and that is happening and do photography? When we were using film, I was using the 35 millimeter films. And for me, the film is the most cheapest of all the tools that I need, right? So if somebody needs a picture of someone cutting a ribbon, some photographers will take one. I will take about 10 or 15. Out of that 10 or 15, there's going to be one or two shots that no one else does have that captures the moment as this newspaper or magazine wants it, right? So I'm almost always running around town. I didn't have a car, but I have taxi drivers that I will call and say, hey, can you bring me here? And they will come and take me. And then we'll go here. Once I finish, I go to another one. It got to a point where I literally photograph the president. I will be flying in
Wow.
the presidential how do we call it? Plane, Ghana's version of Air Force One. It's not called Air Force One, but it was a
Yeah.
presidential budget, and then do
Yeah.
photos. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And so how long did this go on for?
Well, this went on until I think around 2000 and around 2000. It was like mid 90s until early to mid 90s until 2000. 2000 was when I decided to migrate. And what happened was this. Then the age of digital photography started coming to Ghana. And then I realized that I may not be able to compete with the digital photographers, right?
Hmm.
So, because there are digital photography coming, somebody can take a picture at an event because it is digital. All that you have to do is take out the memory card and then drop
Mm-hmm.
it. So it takes out going to, how do we call it? Going to the developer to develop your roles. So it put me at a disadvantage, and it was very expensive. I couldn't afford to buy one. I couldn't because it was way out of my reach. So I had an opportunity to come to New York, and the idea was I was going to come to New York, and once I was in New York, I was going to spend the whole year working hard to buy
Hmm.
digital photography. I went online and did a lot of research. There is a photo shop in New York. I think it's called B&H Photoshop. It's right in Manhattan. I knew about that before I came to New York. I wanted to go there and see all the equipments that they have, select the ones that I want, know how much it was, do find a way to work, save money, buy it, and go back to Ghana. I got to US in I think September 2000. Exactly 1 year later, September 11 happened. When I've not even finished figuring out what kind of job am I going to do to make that money. So that
Hmm.
was a pivotal point in my life.
And by that point, I'm assuming maybe you had enough money to buy yourself a camera. Had you determined, I'm not going back to Ghana? Did you make the decision to stay?
Well, cameras are expensive. When I got here, the first few months, I couldn't work. By the time I figured out how to work, I started working at a McDonald's. Um, so like clothing, did all sort of jobs. By the time I saved enough money to go buy the camera, that was when September 11 happened. And in the process of having that job, I knew that when I go back to Ghana, I will come back again because there was so much equipment. I was envisioning me creating a studio back in Ghana. But then when September 11 happened with a Muslim name, right, and being a Muslim, I told myself that if I leave this country, it's going to be difficult for me to come back. And so I decided to stay and give up my photography dream.
That's wild. And while you're working, did you determine that you maybe weren't going to become a photographer in the United States because you didn't understand the ecosystem the way you did in Accra? Or did it ever dawn upon you that this might be a career path here?
When I was in Ghana, a lot of friends have said to me, "Oh my goodness, if you ever made it in New York, you're gonna make it hard." But then I came, and I'm a very inquisitive individual. I try hard, try to knock on different doors. None of them materialize. None. So when the Ghanaian community is doing event, you will go and photograph them, and then you get some money, right? But it wasn't what I envisioned that I would be doing photography wise in my life. So yeah, so my photography career, literally, I watch it kind of like died.
Wow. And September 11th happens. You've thrown this dream away. What do you do?
So I have a friend that we know each other back in Ghana, and we have a mutual friend with him that live in the Bronx. We hang out with him all the time. The other friend who I said that we know each other from Ghana lived in Portland, Maine. So one day I went to the mutual friend's house in the Bronx, and there is this guy who I knew from Ghana. But when he left Ghana, his family have sent him to school in Italy to go and do jewelry designing or some sort of designing. And then I saw him in the Bronx, and I said, "Oh, how come nobody told me that?" Excuse me, my eye is itching. Nobody told me that this gentleman is visiting. And then he said, "Oh, I come here every once in a while, like once, twice a month." And I asked him, "Are they paying you to come and visit them from Italy?" And he said, "No, I live in Maine." And literally, I asked, "Where is Maine?" And they said, "Oh, it's some state out there with a lot of white people." And then he said, "You should come visit. You're gonna like it." And I said, "Yeah." So I came and visit Portland, and I love it. Went back, and then the January 2002, I I came back for a visit, and I never left.
And so, did you know you weren't going to leave? Did you just go there and say, you know what, New York is, it's tough. It's tough being an immigrant in New York right now. It's tough being a man with the last name Ali. I'm just going to stay here.
No, I think I what I love about here, I think it was at that time less people to some extent extremely laid back. It does have more of a community feel than New York does have, and it's also not a fast-paced place like New York, right? I can wake up in the morning and go out for a walk. But there's a funny story that I tell people that the first day that I went to the downtown, I asked someone that I'm looking for the downtown. I say, "Hey, how can I get to downtown?" And he said, "This is downtown." And I look around and say, "This is your downtown?" They say, "Yeah." I'm like, "God damn it! It's like a neighborhood in New York. Actually, smaller than a neighborhood in New York." Yeah, I fell in love with Portland. The communal nature, the slowness of things. Like, everything is opposite New York. It's not like it's a small place. There's a lot of art. Everyone knows everyone, and so I stayed. The first year, I think I work. First few years, I work in restaurants, doing all sort of restaurant work. Then I find a job running an after-school program for mostly immigrants and other marginalized group of young people. So I did that until 2014, I think. No, 2008, not 2014. That is way too fast. So we're talking about 2002 to 2008. I did that, and then I started working with people, men who are out of jail with a long history of substance abuse. I work with people who are on house, both adults and young people between the age of 11 and 18. um, I ran a program in a neighborhood that is for immigrants. It's like a after school program where these young people come. But that after school program with these young people was what exposed me to a lot of inequalities in the US. It is what exposed me to, when as immigrants, when we come here, all we're looking for is to make money, right? Oh, I'm an immigrant, I'm here to make money. But engaging those young people, it's a program called Peer Leader in Portland's how do we call it, public housing neighborhoods. It's called Riverside, Riverton Park, Kennedy Park, and Sagamore Village. Those three neighborhoods. There were African immigrants, Asian immigrants, South American immigrants, and some poor white folks. Those neighborhoods, the kids that I work with, exposed me to a whole lot of things that I was not exposed to as an immigrant. I learned from them. I learned the system from them. Some of them will end up going to jail. I will be the one that will be the one between their families. I embedded myself into the community that I happen to find myself. I am lucky that I'm from Ghana, where English is the lingua franca. But here, some of the parents are coming from non-English speaking countries. They are coming from Somalia, from Sudan, from many other African or South American. And I happen to be this person who is in the community. Wherever you go, you'll see me with young people, with the community at the masjid, and with the non-Muslim. Almost everywhere in the community, I was there. So I build this trust with the immigrant community, and the community at large. As I said, I'm a curious person, so I will go to art shows. I will go to the museum. I will go to places that normally some immigrants don't go. And then the kids that I work with, I started bringing them into the community. There was a woman that I was working with who loved. She participates in everything in the city. So I learned that from her because she will say, "Let's bring the kids to this stuff." So when she stopped, and I became the what we call site coordinator, I took over and I was doing the same thing. So I built relationship with the larger community, and I also build relationship with the parents of the young people that I work with. Whilst doing that, I created an organization called Men Interfaith Youth Alliance. Right. What that was doing was I bring young people who are Muslims, Christians, Jews, and some kids that say that we don't believe in anything, or they have other faith that is not of the three Abrahamic faiths. That also got me to connect with broader community and get to do things. I don't know if you know this organization called Seeds of Peace. Seeds of Peace is an international organization that work with young people who are coming from war-torn countries. They bring young people from Israel and its Arab neighbors. They bring people from Pakistan and India. When it started so many years ago, there's the two Cyprus sites and some Moroccan. So the kids that we work with in Portland, the kids in southern Maine who are mostly immigrants, and then the kids from northern Maine who are white kids also used to go to the camp. So I became part of that through my daytime job when the after school program when it was closed. So I will go to this camp, and that also extended my understanding of a lot of things in this country and at global level.
And so you're immersed in community across different types of communities. You're seeing Portland really at the ground level, and you're identifying all these inequalities. What was the inequality like? What are the types of inequalities you saw that, I mean, as I'm looking at your career, ended up lighting a fire under you to say, I'm going to dedicate my life to improving this city and the people in this city.
So I the current job that I have is a program that was supposed to work with marginalized parents who have kids in the school system. And whilst during that job, um, I was not interested in elected office. All I was doing was I would organize like rallies. When Trayvon Martin was murdered, I organized young people on the street and some adults. Anytime there's something in the community, you will see me there. Marches, protests, food, working at the soup kitchen. So this woman that we used to work at this program that I run now, one day said to me, "There's an opening on the school board. I think you should run. There are people running, but they're all running for political reason. The work that you do with their families." And I said to her that I'm not interested. And I said, "Why do you want me to run?" She said, "Well, no." I said, I'm not interested." She said, "Why?" Then I said, "Because I'm not interested in politics." Then she said, "Duh, since I know you, everything that you've done is politics. So don't tell me you're not interested." Then I said, "I'm not interested in organized politics." She called me again a few days later and said, "Hey, I'm just calling to make sure that you are still thinking about what I said." And I said, "I'm not interested. I told you I'm not interested." So the following day, I went to work to the person who is housing the program that we have. And I said, "Hey, you know what that woman is saying to me that I should run for school board?" And then our colleague said, "And?" And I said, "And I'm not interested." She said, "Well, you are not interested. Threat is one thing. I think you should be interested. You'll be the right person to run for office." And I said, "No, I don't even know. I don't know. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. Nobody's going to vote for me." And she said, "Actually, people are like you are the ones that people will vote for, especially you. You are connected with everybody. You work with families. You work with students. Everybody will vote for you. Everybody likes you and the work that you do." Um, I went and took out papers. And when I went to City Hall, I asked them that, "Hey, if I change my mind," they said, "Oh, yeah, you can change your mind at any time." Actually, that was not true. You cannot change your mind. Once you sign up and you say you're not running, you cannot run. All right. You can choose not to run, but your name will be on the ballot once you qualify. The seat was at large, which means that it is citywide, and I have to get, I think, between 350 and 500 signatures. And I hit the street, start turning to people. I would say, "Hey, my name is Pious Ali. I'm running for school board." So, "Oh, yeah, Pious, we know the things that you do in the city. You are the right person for it." Collected the signatures, got on the ballot, ran an amazing campaign, fueled and powered by young people, not just from my. It was the beginning of, that was in 2013. It was the beginning of where local candidates are using social media. So I will go around and canvas with a group of young people, and I'll take a photo and put it on Facebook and say, "Hey, today we did this." And then I started getting young people, not just from my city, but from the surrounding, the greater Portland area, will reach out to me and say that, "Hey, can we volunteer with your campaign?" It got to a point that if I go to a neighborhood, I was concerned that these kids will cost me the election because I have like so many kids, about 10 or 15 kids running around knocking at people's doors and asking them to vote for me. It worked out. There were two seats, and two of us were running. Oh no, six of us were running for two seats. I was able to get one of the seats and became the first Muslim and the first African immigrant to be elected to any office in the state of Maine. I was
To
not the
any
first to run
office.
any office. Yeah, I was the first to be elected, but I was not first. I always try to make that clear. I was not the first to run. There were two Somali brothers or friends of mine who have run earlier and never got, and then a Sudanese woman have run. Um, in the 60s or 70s, there was an Armenian immigrant who ran and got elected to the city council. So I'm not the first immigrant, but I'm the first Muslim and the first African immigrant to be elected into any public office in Maine in 2013.
That is incredible. And actually, I was telling you before the show that I was in Maine in 2013. We were driving from Massachusetts to, gosh, I think it must have been Connecticut. So we stopped by Maine and we went to get pizza. What's that famous pizza place over there? It might be Otto's or something. I went to
Others,
Otto's to
yeah.
get pizza. Yeah. And I saw a sign and your name is so unique. I took a picture and I'm like, who is this guy? And I took a picture so I can look it up later. And I'm pretty sure I posted it to my Instagram too. And I'm pretty sure I tagged you too. I bet we can go into the Instagram archives and see if we talked in 2013. But I started following you then. So I was actually mostly intrigued by your name. Is that the name you had in
Hmm.
Ghana?
Well, that's a long story. We'll get to that.
Okay.
That is not that.
It's the
So
coolest.
my
It's such an iconic name.
yeah, my birth given name is Abdullah. So my birth given name is Abdullah Ali, right? And when I was in high school, you know, i- in Ghana, the- you either a Muslim or a Christian or you have African traditional religion. And African names have meanings and they have stories behind them, right? But Abdullah is not an African name; it's a Muslim name. I was in a class that we were learning the African traditional religion. And then the teacher asked all of us, he goes around his first day in class, he will go around and say your name and tell the story behind your name. So when it was my turn, I said, my name is Abdullah. It means the servant of God. And then he asked the class, does anybody worship the devil here? The whole class said no. Then he gave me an assignment, a homework. Like the next time you come here, tell me the meaning of your name and the story behind your name. Don't tell me that you are a servant of God. Everybody here worships God because they either Muslims or Christians. The next class, I said that my name means a pious fellow. As I said earlier, I was raised by my grandmother. My friends will come to the house and they'll say to my grandmother, we're looking for Pious. My friends started calling me Pious, and it became my nickname in high school. They would say, we're looking for Pious. And she would say, no, there's nobody who lives here by the name Pious. Um, my grandson's name is Abdullah. If you're looking for Abdullah, I'll call him for you. But if you're looking for Pious, there's no Pious here. One day she yelled and said, Pious, your friends are calling you. So when I came out, I said, are you not accepting the name? And then she laughed. So when I started working for newspapers, instead of using like my byline, instead of using Abdullah Ali, which I think is long, I started using Pious Ali. It is, like you said, it's very iconic, it's very short and easy to say. So yeah, so all my photographs in those days that goes to be published will have my name, or if I write a short story blurb to follow this thing, it will say story and photo by Pious Ali. So that is how
You
the
know,
name
it's so
came by.
funny. First of all, it's incredible. It's an awesome story, but it's so funny because what you didn't realize, like there's a few things that you did that you probably didn't realize were priming you for a later career as a servant. The first one is you mentioned when you were in New York, you were knocking on doors to get opportunities and you didn't find any. And that knocking on doors is exactly what got you into public office, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
The second thing
Yep.
is like Abdullah Ali is not a very search engine friendly name. Pious Ali,
Right.
iconic. I dare you to find another one. So you have all these
Yeah.
bylines and all this work. And like, it's if I saw Abdullah Ali, maybe I would have taken a picture of the sign. Maybe I've been like, oh, cool, let's support a Muslim. But Pious Ali, I was like, this is iconic. I don't know who this person is or why this is their name, but like, I'm so into it. I aspire for this. So that's very, very, very cool.
So when you become when you are becoming a citizen, you have the option to do whatever you want to do with your name.
With your
When
name,
I was living, yeah, when I was living in Ghana, right, my middle name was Pius, so I was Abdullah Pius Ali. And then when I got to US, and then when I got to when I was going to take my oath to become a citizen, that they would tell you that, do you want to change your name? Do you want to do anything to your name? And I say, yeah, sure, because everybody was calling me Pius Ali. The only thing that have my actual name was my legal driver's license. So I moved the Abdullah and made it my middle name, and then moved because that is what I was being called anyway. Everyone calls me that, so it became my first name because people were calling me Pious anyway, and so it became my legal first name instead of being my middle name. So that is
that's
how my
incredible. Does
name
anybody
happens
call
to
you
be.
Abdullah? Like your wife? Does she call you Pious or does she call you Abdullah?
Uh, so I'm not married anymore. I was
I'm
married
sorry.
to somebody from. That's okay. I was married to somebody from Maine. We have two kids. My son lives in Boston. His name is Troy, and my daughter actually goes to school at Wheaton College. Her name is Rahamat. Um, uh, Dear mother used to call me Pius. I am engaged now, and my fiance is in Ghana. I'm doing the process to bring her here. She also called me Pius. But if I'm working, there was a time that I was working in the Bronx. And then I heard someone say, in Ghana, people will either call you Abdullah or Abdullahi. I heard someone yell, Abdullahi. In my head, I said, this person knows me and knows me extremely well. Somebody either we grew up together or a very close friend. And then I turn around. It happened that yes, it was a close friend from Ghana that lived in New York that I haven't seen in a long time. He was driving, he parked the car and he ran. And I said that when you call me, I know it is somebody from back home that I know for a long time, not just somebody who just
Yeah.
yeah, and back home, I have close family members. Older will not call me Pious. They'll still call me Abdullah.
Yeah. No, that's really amazing. And so I'm assuming, I'm not assuming, I know this because I followed you then, I follow you now. So you win this Board of Education seat. And it seems like in Maine, there's some places where civil servant positions can be a full-time job. And it seems like in Maine, in Portland particularly, that's not necessarily the case. So you're continuing to do your work with the community and with the youth, and you have this role. How did you use the role to your advantage in terms of the outcomes that you were hoping to accomplish with the younger kids? And did you find that you were able to even make impact in Maine? Because I know that there's a reputation around politics, whether it's either effective or it's not, right? It's too bureaucratically weighed
Right.
down. So what was your experience in that role?
So I think when I ran, it brought a lot of pride to the immigrant community, especially in the Muslim community, because when I was running, no, because some other people have run without being elected, it's like let's cross our fingers and see what will happen. Then I got elected, and everyone got excited, and
How many votes, by the
then
way, was that, out of curiosity?
well, so I don't remember the numbers, but what I know was this: the person who got the two of us, the other person beat me by I think 70 votes, and then the person that came after me, I beat them by 1,000 votes.
Okay, so we're
So
talking
me,
like as long as the immigrant community came together, you probably had a seat, and that's probably exactly what happened.
well, it's not necessary because the immigrant community is a small percentage. We are a small numbers. We cannot change anything. We are,
Uh
even
huh.
now that the numbers have grown, we are just symbolic, right? But
Okay.
I think it is the way I did my campaign and the work that I've done over the years. You know how you say that a lot of things build up to what I'm doing without me knowing? My work in the community, because even though I was working with mostly with immigrants and racial minorities and kids who are coming from poverty, but my work enriches all the young people that live in the city and in the state because I work with Seeds of Peace. I created that interfaith. The interfaith group was not just working with immigrants, we're working with, I'm bringing immigrants and mainstream kids, Muslim kids, Jewish kids together, Christian kids, and kids that don't even have religion. We're not talking about faith, actually. What we're doing is public service. We go and do volunteer work here. We talk a little bit about if there's a Jewish holiday, we join, we go to Eid, and then I also co-founded another youth program with the NWSCP called King Fellows around the philosophy of Dr. King. So all of this came together and made it difficult made it easy for me to win because I've been in the classrooms and talked to kids. Families know about the work that I do and with their kids, and teachers knew me, community members know me. So it was easy for me to be had a second how do you call it, slot out of
Yeah.
the how do we call it, the six people. What
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
interesting
But
was, yep.
no, I was gonna say, I totally had cut you off though. You were talking about how when you'd arrived to the seat, you were working towards some of your initiatives within the seat. But carry on. You were saying what was interesting was
In 2016, when everything changed, right? The, the then candidate Trump came to be a candidate. And everything that I represent, I'm a black man, I am an immigrant, I am a Muslim, was under assault from his rhetoric. And then someone who was a city councilor decided to run for a state seat. And then I declared in December, I declared that I was running for that seat because the person declared that they were running for state senate. In 2015, prior to 2016, there was a friend of mine who has been in politics for a long time. He's a white man, he's a Jewish man. was running for he ran for mayor, and I helped him. But during that help, I realized how much influence I have built over the years because I endorse him. And a lot of people have privately said to me that thank you for endorsing him. You made us vote for him. A lot of people.
Hmm.
I was able to get some people to support him, not just people from the immigrant community, but from the larger community. People will ask me, "Who do you support?" And I say, "I support this guy," right? So he got elected, and also I was very how do we accessible. Like as a school board member, some people will come to me with city council issues, and then I will send them to the city clerk because school board is completely separate from the city council. When Trump came into the a political fray. I mean, he's been doing it all the time, but when he came, kind of like vividly that he was running, it happened that there was a state senator whose term he was term limited, so he stepped down, and then there was a sitting city councilor who had been a state legislator before his run for U.S. Congress. He declared that he was running for the state seat, and I declared that actually, I think on Twitter or something, some social media, that yeah, there's an opening and I'm going to run for it. And then I started campaigning. Unfortunately for this gentleman, you know, we don't run until November, but I started campaigning at the end of December to early January that I was
Mm-hmm.
running for. And this gentleman had to collect signatures. He collected his signatures. Unfortunately, he made a mistake. His campaign manager was a high school student. The kid did not present the signatures, right? So this guy could not be on the ballot. And now I have
Oh,
started campaigning for his seat for about 3 to 4 months, and we consider ourselves to be friends. And I refuse to step down. I said that, well, I already declared that I'm running for this seat because you are not running. It is not my fault, and I've put in energy, and someone have decided that they are running for the school board seat that I was also leaving. I'm not going to go to that person and say to them that don't run for your seat because someone made a mistake. So I took my chances, but I outwork him. I canvass so much. Um, I knocked on almost every door, and I got a lot of support. My signs were all over the place. I made pins. I think I sent you when we met
yeah,
on
I have a
Clubhouse,
poster
right?
and a pin.
And the
Yeah,
pin,
on
yeah.
Clubhouse.
So
Yeah,
I made those
peak COVID.
pins. There was like a bumper stickers, and the campaign was exciting. I was talking to people, knocking on doors. I did canvass the whole city like 2.5 to 3 times.
When you
And
say you
so
canvassed, you mean you had people covered, or you literally went door to door? What does it
I
mean to
literally don't.
canvass
I have
technically?
volunteers. Yeah, I have volunteers, but one of the things that I really love doing as part of the political process is engaging constituents. And there's no way that you can have that than knocking at someone's door and say, "Hey, my name is so so and so. I'm running for city council. I'm running for this. I want you. I want your vote." It generates conversation. Sometimes very pleasant. Sometimes not so much because our political system is make up of different
Hmm.
people with different political philosophies and political beliefs. But I did that. I went around the city at least 2.5 to 3 times. And so election day came, and it was a three-way race. I got elected with about 65 to 70% of the vote, and that was in
A
2016.
landslide,
Yeah.
literally a
So,
landslide.
yep. And so,
Wow.
whereby at national level, everyone was we were all sad, including myself, that Trump got elected. But I became the how do they say, the light for some people, and so my winning for that was very celebratory, not just in Portland, but in the states, across the country, and to some
Right.
extent uh, across the world, because I received so many messages of people saying, "Congratulations, you have given us hope," and it goes on and on and on. And what changed is between when I got elected to the school board and then got elected to the city council, it's lit some sort of light in the Muslim and immigrant communities that so many people decided to run for office,
Hmm.
because I have shown that it is possible, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
became this person who sits. You ask me what are some of the impacts, even if you forget about policies and you just look at the impact of what I did in the community. For a place like Maine, currently, um, I think we have about four Muslims in elected office. There's me.
Wow.
There is a school board member, and then there is my friend Deka Dalak, who was a city councillor. She became the mayor, and now she is state legislature elected. And then there is Mana Abdul, who in another town, who is also been elected to go to the state legislature. And then there's another sister. She's not a first generation, she's second generation. She was born here. I think her parents are from Syria. She wasn't born in Maine, but she came to Maine because her husband had a job here. She lives in a town called Bangor. She's on the school board. So, in the span of a few years, just that act of me having the courage to run, and that is just the Muslims, and there are a lot of other immigrants who are also run and are occupying office spaces, elected offices. There's an organization called New American Leaders. When I got elected to the city council in 2016, I went to their convening in DC, and I was the only one from Maine. It was sad, just me from Maine and from New England. The following year, it was just me. In 2018, when I was going, I went with two people. 2019, there's five of us. Somebody dragged me on the side and said, "What the heck are you doing up there?" And I said, "We're making change. We are, so because people think about Maine, when you hear Maine, nobody think that these many people will get to be involved, these many people will be in elected office, but that is exactly what is happening.
It's incredible. And when you were canvassing in 2016, you had the advantage, and for some people it's a disadvantage, but for you it's an advantage of saying, I've already served in elected office. So that's why you should trust me with your vote. What were the highlights of what you had done in your previous post that you were able to convince people to vote for you on? Like the highlights, the effectively, bullet points that you armed these high schoolers that were invading Portland with.
So I think when you are running for a municipal office, whether it is city council or school board, in some places, a commissioner, like a county commissioners, it's mostly a combination of what you've done with your life and what your policies are. I love public policy. I advocate for public transportation. When I was on the school board, I worked with city councilors to get high school students to not take the yellow buses and got to take the metro. So that was a highlight that I talked to people. I am a big advocate for civic engagement, and my work with Seas of Peace, my work with the interfaith group, and my work with young people speaks to that. And when I was on the school board, I work with my colleagues on the school board to create what we call public affairs committee, which goes out without the all the trappings of power. They go out to different communities to talk to people. We represent you on the school board. We need to talk to you. So I work to create that. I also our school board used to meet at one location. I was able to work with my colleagues to get them to get the school board to go around each school year. We'll go to different communities where different school is located, and we will have the meeting in the school at least once a year so that we go close to the people. And the argument that I made at that time was that there are parents who only have they are single mothers. They don't have anybody to take care of their little ones for them to drive to where we have the school meeting. But if you bring it to the school building where their kids go to, they will attend the meeting. And so I made all of those changes, and my ability to engage with people. I'm a very accessible elected person, very accessible. You call me, I will call you back. You email me, I will respond to the email. You want to meet, I will meet. I have a track record of emphasizing on elected officials engaging the people that they represent, even if I don't agree with you. On the campaign trail, my volunteers may say to me that, well, that person have a Trump sign. We don't want to go there. And I say, just go. I am the candidate. So I would go, and they would say, Mr. Ali, we read about you in the news. We don't agree. I said, no, I know we don't agree, but I know I'm going to win this race. And if I win, I am a citywide. city councilor, which is we call it at large, I'm going to represent you. I want to be able to talk to you even if you don't agree. If
Huh.
you have an issue that you need a city council to address, I want you to be able to call me and tell me or email me. And also, the city council is non-partisan race. It is, you're not running based on your political affiliation. You are running as a citizen or as a resident. But the newspaper will write and say you are a registered Democrat or you are a registered Republican. So yeah, those are some of the selling points that I, and also the idea that because the two people that run against me, the incumbent is a Democrat. Actually, me and him we're both progressive. We have the same similar way of looking at policy. I only happen to, and he has been in politics for a long time. He was a state legislature. He ran for Congress. Um, um, I just happened to overwork him, outwork him, not overwork him. Yeah.
It's so inspiring to hear about the journey, and I'm curious about, as you transition from city council, from school board to city council, how did your day change? Like, what is a day for you? What are the problems that you're solving? What are you proud of doing for the city of Portland?
So I think we've done a lot of work. I have a daytime job, so council meeting is evening. Before the pandemic, I ran for re-election in 2019 unopposed, and then this year I ran for re-election. One of my
And you
opponents is a
won
Muslim.
a week ago.
Yeah, a week
But
ago,
anyways, go ahead.
whereby
Congratulations.
thank you by 73% of the vote. As it may happen, one of my opponents
Oof.
is actually a Muslim, who is a Republican. So that could be another conversation because we don't have a lot of time. And
But
so,
that's not bad.
but
That's like, we don't need monopolies,
we,
Muslim monopolies in politics. Let's have all of them
yeah,
coming out.
yeah, we are not monolithic. So I'm glad that it shows that our community is very diverse. You know, we have different thoughts
Yeah.
and different this thing. But going back to what are some of the things when George Floyd happened, before that I advocated for workforce. So I support everything that will support workforce in the city. I care about education. I have supported the school budget. It comes from the school council to the city council. I proudly will say that I got to change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day before the state did it. Uh, uh, when George Floyd happened, I work with my colleagues to create a racial equity steering committee. Our city have never have like a equity director in the recent years, so that racial equity steering committee sent in a lot of recommendations to the council, and we are in the process to hire what we call a JDI director. Um, I advocate for public housing. So all the money that we send into public housing, I see municipal election in the day-to-day help for people, individuals. I see that more as a collaborative work. Most of the work, we are a strong manager council. So most of the work is done by staff. We will tell them we want to do this, whether it is housing or workforce development or education, they will do the work and bring it to us. But then, because I'm also at large, some of my high level policies that I believe in are some of the things that I share with you. I I was able to work with my colleagues to ban our city from using racial, the how do we call it, the racial scanning technology, where identifying technology, we ban our police from or any city staff from using it. I work to get our police to use body camera. So most of my work has been around civic engagement and also the protection of civil rights, housing, public transportation. I serve on the Metro board. We are working to hopefully get middle school kids to take the Metro bus because we believe that by doing that you increase ridership in this part of the country. Almost every day is driving. If you can count 10 cars with single riders in the car. We're trying to change that for several reasons, for global warming, for our environment, also for building communities. Yeah.
It's interesting. Today, I was listening to a podcast. It's by the New York Times. They read some of their pieces that are long form, and it was about Uruguay and how Uruguay is one of the only countries that has managed to really balance their carbon footprint while still having a very like a society that's able to produce a lot and have a lot of output. Because typically, places that are easy on the globe tend to be places there that are pretty poor. There's a very strong correlation between quality of life and the amount of fossil fuels you
Hmm.
use. So they looked at Uruguay and they said, okay, this is a really interesting place. Like the actual carbon use per citizen is pretty low, but they still have very developed living. And they've managed to kind of through policy get people to think about the environment, think about washing things at night when it's easier on the power grid, think about not having to not buying a car when they don't need to. And so the journalist was talking about how to scale Uruguay and kind of comparing Uruguay to other things. And when you're talking about Maine, I can't help but draw a lot of the comparisons there because Portland is it's a smaller city. You're winning by 73%. I'm sure you walk into coffee shops and people are like, Pious, let me make you a coffee. Don't pay for anything. Like, whereas I live in Los Angeles, I know who my city counselor is, but I bet if you walk by me, I couldn't identify him. I've only seen him on like the ballot, maybe, and like I
Yeah.
checked his name off. So you have the advantage of being somewhere because it's a bit smaller, having the advantage of being able to be a seed for change, pun intended, and being able to motivate and inspire and go to these places with 5 or 6 representatives who all happen to be Muslims, and I'm sure many other representatives who are minorities in other way. So like I'm drawing
Right.
this comparison, and you're able to spawn this change by just doing it yourself and in a place where it's worked, and you kind of hope to see it modeled city after city after city. What's your observation been since you've joined American politics in 2013 until now, and how it's shifted? I mean, you're Muslim, you're Black, you saw Trump get elected, you saw all the things, many things that have happened, and that moment, that kind of reckoning that happened with the murder of George Floyd in the United States. Um, but it's been a tough environment, right? And representation's
It
been limited but
is.
growing. So what are some observations of yours?
So I think I have seen a lot of changes. I've seen more immigrants and more Muslims run for office. This year, there was about 180 Muslims that were elected. Like in 2013, I can count the Muslims that I know who are in elected office across the U.S. Now I cannot even find my name. I will have to look through the. There's a group called I think Jet Park. Yeah, because in like
Yeah, that's the Dean
2013,
Mazin's group, I think, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Mazin, yeah. So I can look at the list that they share and I'll say, oh, yeah, that's me. I'm number 3 or number 5. Now I have to go through and scroll all the way down to find my name, right? And then I still am part of New American Leaders who are immigrants, first and second generation, we used to be a small number. And then now the number have grown. More women are running for office. People who fall under the bracket of marginalized, who the political system do not engage, are all running because of all these, but then it's also been very difficult because of the negative rhetoric, and people don't want to talk to each other. That have also made it difficult to be in a political office. What I joke is that I say that even if you are elected by your neighborhood association or your condo association to be in leadership role, it become contentious. Not even just the political one. Every office that is leadership position is become contentious in this country. I hope that people will talk to people. You don't have to agree with somebody to engage them politically or civically. I have a phrase that I use a lot, that your political adversarial is not your enemy; they are your partners with different sets of values. You all want to go to the same direction. The only thing that you don't agree with is how to get there. So I hope that we'll talk to
Huh.
each other a lot, and create a better, whether it is cities, a state or country for us and for our future, for our kids and their kids. Yeah.
It's a beautiful way to look at it. It reminds me of something, I don't know who said it or where I read it, where they say the opposite of love is not hate, it's ambivalence. So
Right.
it's really similar. And so, what do you hope to do next? I'd imagine you want to serve on the city council. Do you have a vision for the future, or are you just going to follow the change wherever it takes you?
I'm gonna follow, inshallah, follow the change wherever it takes me. I hope that the program that I ran, the leadership program, I have run 2 cohorts. In the 2 cohorts, I have had Muslims, immigrants, young people from different races between the age of 21 and 28. If I The first one was in 2020, and then George Floyd happened, and we moved it from in person. We didn't do one last year, and we did one this year. Between these 2 cohorts, it's up 20 young people. Next year, inshallah, if I'm able to do one and I take 10 kids, that is 30. In 5 years, I have 50 young people whose lives I have touched one way or the other. And I've also created a network of 50 racial minority, Muslims, non-Muslims. More the only thing that they have in common is they're either racial minority or they are immigrants. That is 50 young people that would not have connected with each other, but for their participation in the leadership program that I have. So I don't know where it will take me. I will just follow whatever Allah have in store for me.
It was really incredible to hear about this journey and hear about how you found a place for yourself in Accra in the world of celebrity and political photography. And you managed to actually do the same thing in Maine, where you looked at a system that needed some change and you inserted yourself in and grabbed a piece of it. So I see a lot of parallels in your life. And for people who want to follow you, Pious, what's the best place to follow you? And also, how can people support your work?
Well, how do we call it? I have an Instagram account. I have two. One is redundant, it's personal, that I it's not public, but you could find it. There's one that is Pious Ali, and there's the other one that is Counselor Pious. The Counselor Pious one is where I post most of my personal things that I do politically and community building. And I also have a page for my organization, which is Portland Empowered. So if anybody wants to support me in whichever way, that is great. Whether through mostly through the program, because when you do political support, it is me. But when you support the work that I do with the community, the parents, the students, and then I call them emerging leaders, it impacts a lot of people in the community. So yeah,
Awesome. I'll be sure to add those to the show notes. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to
thank you.
seeing where Pious Ali goes. And if you ever do a name change, you should consider Grassroots Abdullah Ali, because like it's such a
I,
beautiful journey and such a truly grassroots tale. But thank you so much, Pious.
thank you, thank you, thank you for the
All
opportunity
right.
to share my story with your audience.